The most dangerous manipulators never raise their voice. They just look disappointed. And somehow, that's enough. Enough to make you cancel your plans. Enough to make you abandon your boundaries. Enough to make you feel like a monster for wanting something for yourself. Welcome to Maestro Psychology. Today we're going to dismantle the most socially accepted form of manipulation on Earth, guilt tripping. And by the end, you'll never unsee it. Here's what separates guilt tripping from every other manipulation tactic. Gaslighting makes you question reality. Threats make you fear consequences. But guilt tripping? It makes you police yourself. The manipulator doesn't even have to work that hard. You do it for them. Unlike a threat, guilt tripping hides behind love, behind sacrifice, behind care. The parent isn't threatening you. They're just reminding you how much they gave up. The partner isn't controlling you. They're just expressing how lonely they feel. The boss isn't ordering you. They're just trusting you with the team's future. That's the trap. When the weapon is wrapped in care, you can't fight back without looking like the villain. And they know it. They have always known it. This isn't accidental. This is a system. To understand why this works so devastatingly well, you need to understand one thing about your brain. Your brain hates moral inconsistency. It needs to see you as a good person, not just to others, to itself. This is called self-concept maintenance in psychology. The moment someone makes you feel like a bad person, even with a look, even with a sigh, your brain triggers an emergency response. It will do almost anything to restore that self-image. Anything to go back to feeling like the good son, the caring partner, the loyal employee. Freud had a name for this. He called it the superego, the internalized voice of authority that judges your every action. Healthy in small doses. But guilt trippers don't just trigger your superego. They hijack it. They install their voice inside your head, so they don't even have to be in the room. Susan Forward, author of Emotional Blackmail, called this the fog: fear, obligation, and guilt. She spent decades working with therapy clients who couldn't understand why they kept surrendering to people who claimed to love them. The answer was always the fog. When you're inside it, you can't see anything clearly. And here's the darkest part. Robert Cialdini's research on influence shows that when someone does you a favor, even an unsolicited one, your brain registers a debt. Guilt trippers exploit this relentlessly. They give. They sacrifice, they remind you, and then they collect. Now I want to walk you through 5 sentences. 5 sentences you've probably heard before. They sound like love. They sound like concern. But each one is a psychological trap with teeth in it. Sentence 1. After everything I've done for you. This sentence doesn't finish the thought on purpose. It leaves you to fill in the blank. And your brain, desperate to restore moral balance, fills it in with the worst possible version. I am a terrible, ungrateful person. The silence is the weapon. Sentence 2. I guess I'll just stay home alone. A partner says this when you want to go out. It's not a request. It's not an honest expression of feeling. It's a preemptive guilt charge. Go. And you already feel like you abandoned them. Stay. And you resent them for it. Either way, they win. Sentence 3. The team is really counting on you this weekend. Your boss says this while looking directly at you. Not a direct order. No overtime offer. Just that look. George K. Simon calls this covert aggression in his book In Sheep's Clothing, pressure delivered with plausible deniability. If you resist, You look like the bad team player. Sentence 4. I just worry about you so much. This one is elegant. It converts control into care. Every restriction, every invasive question, every boundary violation, all justified by worry. And if you push back, now you're making them worry even more. It's a loop with no exit. Sentence 5. God is watching. Religious guilt is perhaps the most sophisticated version of this weapon. The Catholic doctrine of original sin creates guilt before you've done a single thing. You arrive in this world already in debt, and institutions have collected on that debt for centuries, in obedience, in money, in silence. Here's the question that changes everything. Where did your guilt come from? Not the guilt you feel when you genuinely harm someone. I mean the guilt you feel for setting a boundary, for saying no, for wanting something for yourself. That guilt was installed by someone at some point. Nietzsche saw this clearly in the 19th century. In On the Genealogy of Morality, he argued that guilt was never a natural human emotion. It was engineered by those who needed the compliance of the strong. Guilt is a leash, and it was built by someone who needed you not to run. Think about the South Asian family dynamic. A parent who sacrificed their career, their dreams, their freedom, to raise you in a foreign country. That sacrifice is real. That love is real. But when that sacrifice is repeatedly narrated back to you as a debt you owe, it has become a weapon. Love and manipulation can exist in the same person simultaneously. That's the hardest part. Amazon. One of the most successful companies in human history, also one of the most documented users of what psychologists call loyalty guilt. Former employees have described meetings where managers would say things like, "Jeff believes in you. Don't let the team down." No raise. No order. Just the guilt of possibly disappointing a billionaire who doesn't know your name. Sartre called it bad faith. When we surrender our freedom to avoid the discomfort of guilt, we are not being loyal or loving or spiritual. We are being cowards, his words, not mine. We are choosing the comfort of compliance over the responsibility of being free. And the guilt tripper is betting you will always make that trade. So how do you cut the leash? Not with anger. Anger is what they want. Anger makes you look unreasonable and gives them fresh ammunition. You cut it with clarity. You need to learn to distinguish between two types of guilt: earned guilt and manufactured guilt. Earned guilt says, I harmed someone. I need to acknowledge it and repair it. That guilt is useful. It's your moral compass working correctly. Manufactured guilt says, I failed to meet someone else's expectations. That guilt is a trap. It's someone else's agenda installed inside your nervous system. The next time someone makes you feel guilty, pause. Just 1 second. Ask, did I actually harm someone, or did I simply fail to make them happy? These are not the same thing. You are responsible for your actions. You are not responsible for someone else's emotional management. Henry Cloud and John Townsend wrote about this in Boundaries. Their key insight: guilt trippers will always frame your boundary as an attack on them. They make you the aggressor. Your job is to hold the line anyway, not with cruelty, but with quiet, immovable calm. Calm is the thing they cannot manipulate. There is a sentence that will end more guilt trips than any argument ever will. 5 words. I understand you feel that way. Not agreement, not apology, not justification, just acknowledgement and silence. It removes the fuel. You cannot guilt-trip someone who refuses to argue about their own worth. The final thing I want to leave you with. Gavin de Becker wrote in The Gift of Fear that manipulators specifically target people with high empathy. Your sensitivity isn't a flaw. It's something rare and real, but it needs a guard, not a wall. A guard, someone who checks what deserves to come in. The invisible leash only works while you can't see it. Now you can see it. You know what the sentences sound like. You know what the look means. You know what the sigh is designed to do. Awareness is the first cut. And sometimes, it's the only one you need. If this hit something real in you, drop a comment. Tell me, who was the first person in your life who made you feel guilty for having needs? You don't have to name them. Just acknowledge it. That's step 1. And subscribe. Because the next video is going to go even deeper into the mechanics of control.